Alan Chen, I have been looking forward to this. It is good to have you here in Economics. How you doing today? How you feeling?
I'm doing great, Joseph. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm a big fan.
I'm a fan of your work too. I shout outs to our mutual friend to Brendan who got us connected. So anybody who's been a previous guest on the show, feel free to make references. We're all about that here. Now, we've you and I have had a chance to be acquainted in the past. I always appreciate getting the opportunity to meet and chat with people. It's fun in some ways to dive in and meet somebody for the first time. But it is also nice too to get a little bit of that acquaintance going. So I like that I get to have multiple experiences, different pathways to get to this point. But now that we're here, tell us what you do. Tell us what you're up to these days.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so my name is Alan Chen. I'm a CPA, just certified public accountant here in the US. I'm a founding partner, co-founder of freecashflow.io. It's basically a leading accounting and consulting agency that's based out of Los Angeles, California. And we focus on one niche and one niche only. You guys, well, more specifically, online business and ecom owners out there. So we basically cater to ecom owners, online business owners. We help them with really all aspects of accounting and tax and consultation. And we like to think of ourselves as not a typical tax preparer firm. We're not just, just there for tax season, help you do your taxes and then just disappear and for another year. We're kind of there to be your outsourced financial consultant all year round. We kind of help you with any kind of business you come up with, and we kind of just tackle them along with you, right? We really believe in a lot of constant communication. We really believe in partnering with you hand to hand to solve these issues. So that's kind of what we do, and what our clients are really happy to know that we're always there for them.
Mm-hmm. And you've dabbled in e-commerce as well because you wanted to know what the experience is like. Now, did you dabble into e-commerce so that you would have more empathy for the work you're getting into, or was it like um, were you motivated to do it prior to this? You just say, you know what, actually, I kind of want to have my hand and try out this whole dropshipping e-commerce
Yeah,
Shopify
that's
world.
a great point, Joseph. It's really two factors, right? I would say honestly, it started out just curiosity, right? During the whole COVID, pandemic stuff going on last year, I was like, kind of like, wow, everyone is just working from home now. Everyone's remote, and everyone's selling something online. So I was like, I'm kind of more of an introverted guy. So I'm like just like following along the forums, right? Or just watching popular drop shipping gurus talk about on YouTube. And I was afraid to get my hands dirty. But then one day, just kind of in my head, I was just like, no, I just got to give it a try. I just got to do it to know how it is. So I just kind of dive in. I think the first product I tried my hand on was this smart net massager. I came up with a clever name. I call it Netflix, to play on for of Netflix. So I was like, yeah, you can Netflix and chill. That was my kind of my new model. And I went there, started a Shopify store and put it on. It was like crickets, no sale. What am I doing wrong? And it really bought into my head. Like you really got to try the thing that you're afraid of to really know what it's
Yeah.
about and how it is. And so I did. I went through a lot of trial tribulation. I went through a lot of different products, and at the end, I did find a product that was I wouldn't say like wildly successful or anything, but at least I was able to run the store for a good 5 to 6 month period. I made sales. I think I broke even at the end, but it really gives me that full experience of how much an entrepreneur goes through, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time you're doing it by yourself. And for me with family, I was doing it like at midnight to 3 a.m. because that's the time slot I can find. I was like, and you have to do all aspects, right? When you're solo entrepreneur, you have to do the marketing, the site design, the customer service part of it, and the pod negotiation with someone from China possibly. So it was a lot of work, and I was overwhelmed. And then I read these forums, and I was like, and then they're worried about sales tax. They're worrying about tax implications once they scale big. It's like, oh shoot, well, what do I do now? Is the government going to come after me? What's going to happen at this point? So we realized later in the game that this is actually a big issue, that these ecom owners who have scaled to a certain point, made a success, are now worried that their hard-earned money is going to get taken away by someone, right? So we're like, well, I'm a CPA. My partner is a CPA. Why don't we form an agency and help these guys out, right? So, and we talked to a lot of these guys, surveyed them. They're like, yeah, we would love someone that just focus on us.
Mm-hmm.
They're tired of finding some guy on Google and that kind of knows what they're doing, but not really, doesn't speak the lingo. And we're like, yeah, we done it. We did the whole Shopify experience. We kind of know what it's about. So we think we can help you more directly.
Also, quick correction: I got the name wrong. It wasn't Brendan; it was Jonathan. So sorry, everybody. Just mixed up. I've talked to like 100 people so far, so it's going to happen once in a while. And it reminds me of a conversation that I had with Tyler Jeffco, and he's like similar field, also some in the accounting. Incidentally, I asked him specifically, like, does he do taxes, and he doesn't. So it's cool that like, oh, well, do it, kind of like can get along and provide different assistance in different areas. Um, the e-commerce industry is pretty big. There's room for everybody, and I was just taken
For
away
sure.
by the enthusiasm for this industry in particular, and I think the enthusiasm that you see and you're taken by as well is the entrepreneurial spirit, and people want to make their own way. In some cases, because they don't have a choice, oftentimes, and this is kind of the situation that I was in too, is that I've tried and I've attempted to be part of a more regimented, structured system, and it kicks me out. Even if I'm good at it, it's like, you know what, forget it. Just we don't like the cut of his jib. Just get him out of here. And for a lot of people, entrepreneurship is really like the only option that they have, and whatever job that they have left over, they're just holding on as long as they can to get whatever money that they can get, so that they can invest that money into this business. And then they start making money in this business, and they have to continue to reinvest it. And all of these things keep popping up that I don't think people are mentally ready for. If I'm just trying to sell, shoes or pants, or in my particular specific case, drawers that you can stick underneath the bottom of the desk, there's a lot of things that can catch people off guard, especially in taxes. And if I want to sell to all 50 states, provided that all 50 states have desks, that's a lot of things that I have to worry about. So so a little bit more in your backstory to open up on is, what were you blindsided by? You're blindsided by the taxes, but luckily you have a great deal of experience in this. But what are some of the other things that caught you off guard? And on that same note, what were some of the things that the people that are working with you, that you're helping? What are they typically blindsided by?
Yeah, definitely. I think one big issue that I think a lot of the clients that we have are, I would say, blindsided by is they don't realize that, how impactful it is at the end of the day is the government's portion of the tax that they have to collect, right? And it's not just the federal level, right? It's if you're talking about sales tax, like you were mentioning, yes, all 50 states, I could confirm, probably have desks. So they will all want a piece of the pie, right? So if you start getting to, I would say, the 7 to 8 figure mark, and you start having what we run is what we call a concentration report, right? We download your complete customer listing, and we try to fit them into what state they're in, but even more specifically, what city, what district, and what zip code they're in. Because surprisingly, a lot of people don't know this, but sales tax doesn't end on the state level. Every state, every city, every district, every local jurisdiction, they all decide to have their own tax rate. Yeah, it's crazy like that in the U.S., right? So it's not just that you have to memorize, I would say, like 40 to 45 state sales tax, because some are nicer and decide not to have a state sales tax, like Nevada, for example. But then all these cities and locals is like, hey, we also want some part of your tax money so we can fund the local park or something like that, right? So they say, well, then you really got to see that specific customer, what city he's located in, what district he lives in, what county he lives in, and then combine it with a state sales tax rate. And that's your combined rate that you are supposed to collect and then later on remit to that state government. So a lot of time, we have the customers saying, it's easy. Just multiply this by the 7.65, right? Something like that. And what we've done is like, unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, it gets a little bit more complicated like that if you want to do it correctly. If you don't want to do it, go under like underpayment penalties. So we really educate our customers and on that level too. We actually just launched a course which it's called Tax-Free eCom, and it basically is for those clients that we can't serve directly. We kind of want to get them started with a good foundation of tax and accounting, so then when they do grow and when they do scale their business, they're not blindsided by all these things that's coming their way, and they kind of understand what business strategies they should be implementing early, and what loopholes they can be looking for their business, and how they really should structure along the way. So then at the end of the day, when they do grow big and then they scale, they are well prepared, and not like someone who suddenly overnight made 8 figure selling desks, and then it's like, oh shoot, what do I do now? And that's just a whole lot more work catching up on historical than just doing it right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think you might be able to weigh in on this to the degree that I'm hoping for, but if you can't, I would also understand, because this might have more to do with, say, like back end and having the right conditions set on Shopify. But for that level of specificity, selling not just on the federal level, state level, county level, district level, gated community level, how are people reflecting that in the price point on their website? I mean, how much of it does the website automate? Is it how will I know where I need to adjust prices depending on what part of the earth I'm selling to?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joseph.
Thank you.
And I think there's two ways of addressing this, right? Which we tell our clients. So first way is, yes, Shopify does have a way you could set a rate, I would say, right? Where they try to, I would say, guesstimate on the best rate they have available to them of, if you have a customer ships to a certain address, this is how much you should collect as part of that price, right? So it really is a line item on it, right? So you could say you have an item like a gummy bear backpack and you charge $29.99 for it. You charge $5 for shipping. And then the sales tax comes after that, right? And that's the little distinction that I'm not sure if Shopify does correctly or not, because some states, they would charge sales tax on the shipping portion of it. But some states, I'll say you can exclude the shipping portion as long as your shipping portion is equal to what is the actual postage, right? So if it actually costs you $7.32 to ship this item to Wisconsin, then you're fine. But some Shopify stores like setting their own rate, right? Say $10 flat rate. In that case, you actually did make that difference in profit, and that difference is revenue to you. So you would need to charge sales tax on it. So there's two ways of doing it. One is you literally display this what it's the best guesstimate of what Shopify think the rate is as a line item. That's one way of doing it, but sometimes customers don't like that. They're like, oh, I thought I was just going to only pay $30 for this item. I didn't know they're going to charge me sales tax. Blah. I'm exiting out. I'm abandoning cart, right? But then, so the other way we tell our client is, okay, we know you don't like adding that extra line because they might balk at checkout. Then just include it as part of your price, right? Instead of charging $29.99, charge $34.99, knowing that part of it you're gonna have to pay out later as part of your sales tax for that certain state, right? You kind of just just set a higher sales price, so it's all inclusive, but just know that portion of it you're gonna have to pay out later, and that might be a better strategy because customer just sees that price and it's like, okay, all I have to pay is $35. I get it. I'm gonna do it. Let me check out and finish the sale.
Yeah, and if I know my some of my taxes just from the sales work that I've done in the past, that's a little bit closer to how VAT is structured, say in Europe, where there are surcharges on every part of the manufacturing process. So, for instance, if somebody wants to sew shoes, then there's a surcharge on the production of the string, of the leather, of the soles, of the tag to tell you what size it is. So by the time the shoe is available in a store in anywhere VAT applies, it's already taxed up to the nth degree, and so that way when they pay it, they're not thinking about any of the additional tax codes. They're just paying the flat amount, and then all of that is disseminated across the manufacturing process. Is that right?
Yeah, that's such a great insight, Joseph. I didn't know you have this in-depth tax knowledge, but that's the difference I would say between the U.S.
I was working with Rolexes in a previous job.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah,
that
it
makes a
came in
lot of
handy.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I think I would say that's the main difference between the U.S. sales tax system and something from Europe, which is the VAT system, the value added tax you're mentioning, is that the value added tax, as you said, is spread out across all parts of the production cycle, right? Where the US sales tax system is only charged to whoever the actual end user is, right? In this case, it is the consumer of that vest or that gummy bear backpack. So it's only one rate charged at the end versus being it for the I'll just make it up, 7.65% to be spread out across the modes of manufacturing or production.
Now, so we're going to get into some, I would say some of the entry-level basics, just so that people are a little bit more primed in the mindset. Before we do that, there is a question here that I would really like to get your opinion on, just because of your wealth of expertise. So you have what's the saying for it? Burning the midnight oil on both ends, or double-edged sword, or something along those lines. But anyways, There's two tension points. On the one tension side, you have everybody looking for some way to minimize their tax burden. There's a pretty funny line that I read where the two greatest pastimes in the U.S. are baseball and figuring out how to minimize your taxes.
There's a saying like that.
Something along those lines. I did butcher it.
I need to use that. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm pretty sure it's public domain. It ain't mine.
Okay.
And then on the other side, you have well, it's called the government, but the libertarian that I am, I like to call them the Fed, because I just had to pay the Fed $300 because of my income situation. So you're welcome, the Fed. And typically government programs expand in size and scope. It's very rare to see a government program recede, at least as far as my experience goes. So you have everybody looking for ways to save money on their taxes, and you look at the government who's continuing, or looking at the Fed, they continue to expand programs which cost money, and it seems like this is like an unsustainable system. So, what would you, I guess, what would you like to see in the tax code go? What would you see as like a fair and equitable means for people to at least feel a little bit more, I guess, comfortable with the degree of taxes that they're paying? And it's not just like e-commerce businesses either. It's Amazon, for instance. Amazon pays a penny in taxes, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joseph. So it's a very, I would say the tax code in the US is overly complex,
Mhm.
right? So I think that's why people are so afraid of it, right? They ask a lot of questions, they don't always get the right answers, and then they get very, I would say, muddled and confused. And you know what they end up doing? They just end up avoiding it, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the big problems of the US tax system is there's actually tons of people out there that neither, well, it's two ways, right? They intentionally don't want to pay their taxes because it's just they just want to avoid it. They're just like, they won't catch me. I'm just gonna run to Bermuda or something, you know, I'll
Yeah.
be fine. Or two, it's not that they're just trying to be a bad citizen of the state. They just don't know how to approach it, right? They get behind and then they want to catch up, but then they're so afraid looking at those forms, the complicated IRS website, and then they just like, what do I do? And if I have to talk, I would say a little bit political about what I would like to happen is I would like an overhaul where they just simplify the system for people, right? Makes it a lot more easier to understand. Makes it so that it's almost like I think TurboTax is great. TurboTax for individuals is wonderful, right? It provides a step-by-step guidance for people who don't understand tax to see like, yeah, this is this prompt, this is what you should enter, and there's a little question mark, then you can click on to understand a little bit more about it. I would say if the US government can adopt that model, people will be less afraid to submit their taxes. I don't know the exact figure, but I'm sure it's in the like hundreds of billions where it just miss tax dollars for the U.S. government because people are afraid to submit their taxes. They're afraid to be a good citizen because they don't know what to do. It happens more often than you think, Joseph. But yeah, there's a lot of people who just don't pay their taxes. And I know you want to address the other issue, which is a company like Amazon, right? Who knows who I was a former auditor at a big four audit firm, and we face this problem all the time. We have these big multinational companies, these huge billion-dollar firms like Amazon and Facebook, and they just know all the tricks and tips in the books, right?
Mhm.
So they have the resource and the money to hire tons of tax experts, people who works direct for IRS. They're just like, yeah, we'll bring you over too because you read the total tax code, you probably wrote it. They find every single gray area loophole they can find to minimize. They use multiple entities. They find ways to offshore money, right? So, and I'm sure when this stuff hits the news, they people's like, it's so unfair, you know. Why can Amazon get to do this? What about me? What about me as a small business owner? And for us, we're like, yeah, where we probably can't get you Amazon level amount of money back, but we're gonna try to bring some of our expertise to you guys too that we have learned and picked up along the way. So then you guys don't have to pay more than you need to, right? Because it's really tough. I would say being an entrepreneur, like I mentioned before, like yeah, I'm sure like we have some clients that so we talk to them on Slack, right? And you know how Slack has a little green dot to indicate that you're online,
Yeah.
and then we're like, man, sometimes when I'm up with my baby and I see them, wow, this guy's still like one of my clients will be still up till like 2 or 3 a.m. We're like, man, you're burning the midnight oil here. It's like, and then
Mhm.
they're like, yeah, I'm just stressed out with my business, and I'm trying to talk to my supplier and stuff. It's like, wow, it's like, and I know this guy just got out of his 9 to 5 job. I'd be like, yeah, but you kind of just left one prison to enter another one, in a
Mhm.
way, because you're looking for that freedom of time and you're looking to break out, but you kind of just step into another world where you're also being shackled because you haven't found a way to make your business profitable. And those are the guys who really, really want to help, right? If they haven't found a way to turn their entrepreneurship into a successful business, into something that they can really, have an owner's draw every month where they can keep money for their own personal needs for their family. Those are things we want to figure out for them. Like we do cash flow analysis, do profit margin analysis. We want to really want to find trendings where we want to find out why the business is not doing as well as it should, being at what the revenue level they're at.
Mhm. And this transitions pretty smoothly into an economics tradition, which is to ask anybody who's running or part of an agency about data in aggregate. I think I tried to come up with a way to combine the two. I call it like dagger git, but I don't know. It almost sounds like
Aggregate.
it's not.
Wow.
It's close. Like it's not bad, but I don't know. I feel like somebody might, if I'm in prison, somebody might pull out a dagger git on me. Anyways, um, so I want to hear about some of the the main, I guess, lessons or patterns or things that you observe in entrepreneurs. Like I said, in aggregate, because you're not just working with one, you're working with multiple. So what are some of the main fears or some of the main, and you can get, by the way, go as granular as you can, by the way, if you want to, is, what are some of the obstacles that they come into, and then conversely, what are some of the methods that they've been able to overcome these obstacles and start entering into a more, profitable and happy making place.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Joseph. So I would say, not to toot my own horn, but I'm sure Jeff mentioned the same thing, is, for us who are just focused on the one niche, right, which is ecom owners,
Yeah.
we do have a lot of data, right, on ecom owners, and we really utilize that to our best advantage and to the advantage of our clients, right? So we see the patterns, right, and we also have our own algorithm where we go over just the relevant deductions and credit just for these guys, and we compare it. We also do a comparison between, especially year over year, of our for this client who's in a similar industry, have similar revenue, operating expense, cost of goods sold levels. Are they actually able to maximize their tax deductions? What is their tax rate? And if the answer is no, why not? What are they doing differently than this client that makes it so that they are not able to maximize? Is it because they haven't hired enough employees? Is it because they're not sourcing correctly? Like, what is going on, right? And to give a more, I would say, granular example is what we do for our client is not only just the, I would say, tax, but the bookkeeping portion. We really go pretty in detail in that when we do bookkeeping, we really want to give you, like, I would say, what we call ironclad financials. It's basically financials that you would not be embarrassed to show your mama or an investor, right? That you can just show that to them, and then they can be like, oh, okay, I can see you run a clean business because this is what your financial is showing me. You know what you're talking about. It's presented well. And one of the things that I'll go a little sidetrack here. One thing that we had was one of our clients was like, "Hey, Alan, I did it." I was like, "What do you mean you did it?" I was like, "I have an investor interested in me." I was like, "Oh, that's great. I'm happy for you." He's like, "But I don't know how to talk to them. Like, I don't know what to say. I don't want to mess it up." It's like, "Oh, okay. Well, do you need our help for like put together a little deck for you?" Like, yeah. I was like, so I put together a little deck for you, and I sent it to him, and he's like, Alan's like, I don't know what to do with this deck. I was like, okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. You want me to sit in on meeting with you and explain it? It's like, yeah, please do. So then we go in this meeting. I introduced myself, I'm a CPA, and where I work for, to give some potential. And they're like, and I just went through the financial with them. And then at the end, the investor was like, I really wish that all these founders would pull in their CPA or their financial partner on these meetings. It just made it so much clearer. I have founders trying to explain to me numbers, and it just didn't make any sense. But I feel more confident and want to invest in the business. So it was just an example of like being able to be on top of your numbers is so important, right? Especially if you're going towards where you're trying to exit, right? Is like, if you can't explain what's good about your business, what makes it click, what makes it shine, if you can't do it and you can't express it, they will never find out, right? So one thing we tell our clients, like, yeah, make sure your bookkeeping is tight. I know it seems like you can just hire anyone on the internet to do that these days, and you can also use software to do that, which you can. I'm not doubting that at all. It's more, can you also explain it? Can you really analyze it? Can you really go through and say what these trendings mean, and what cash flow do you have in your books, and really let an investor feel comfortable that you're a vibing business that's gonna have a good trajectory, which going to the moon, right? It's not crashing. So that's really what we have gathered, and because we have so much comparable data, we can also explain to these guys like, yeah, this is one of our top clients. We have all these other guys, and these guys are performing great, compared to these other owners we have.
And I think it just goes to show the importance of you being immersed in the e-commerce space. Makes you much more capable of being in that conversation and being able to hold the conversation with them, understanding the jargon and knowing what it is that the investors are looking into, as well as what are the needs of your client. And also, I just at first I almost thought it was like a moment of sarcasm, really. So what do you want me to come sit in the meeting with you? And like, he goes, yeah, please do that. Okay, I guess I will then.
No, definitely not. I was being
Yeah,
sincere in offering it, but I didn't know if he wants me there, right? Because
yeah,
sometimes we have founder who wants to be in the spotlight, right? They want to be
yeah.
the CEO over everything, and we really applaud those guys too. But if they're just a super genius that can do it in 8 hours, 4 hours, they're like, that's fine. But if you're working 16 hours because you're trying to be a VA of customer service, doing everything, I think it's not worth it at
Right.
that point.
And that reminds me of something that I had remembered. So, but I get to talk to a lot of people, and and every time that I see that one of my guests has a YouTube channel, I subscribe to it. So my subscriber list is massive, and it's this great thing now where like every day I have like 20 videos. Some of them are 20 seconds long. Some of them are 10 minutes and are 30 minutes. And so I get to absorb a lot of continuing information from a lot of a lot of these sources. And Carrie, previous guest Carrie Eggleton, he was at the time explaining to people where they need to divert their energy if they're going to run a successful e-commerce business, and they need to put themselves in the mindset of a CEO and not in the mindset of a seamstress or whatever is the equivalent of
Seamstress.
that. Yeah, which is like an equivalent of like a laborer's position. And so what
Got
I
it.
was wondering is, in a lot of the plans that you had seen is, were they putting their time somewhere that was ineffective given the relative importance of their position?
Yeah, that's a great one too, Joseph. So we have seen a lot of examples of that actually, where so it comes down to trust. So a lot of time, and I faced this myself, right? Where during my Shopify days, I was frustrated, like why doesn't Netflix and chill work? It's such a great model. It has to work. And I invested in a mentor, right? But then actually the first mentor I invested in was, you know, it didn't work out. I won't say it's a scam. It maybe did work in the past. Basically, what all he did was he threw needles in a haystack, right? He just put a product after product and just hope one sticks. That's the way the mentorship worked out. I was like, wow, so you have to go and do hundreds of product before you find one that works. And I think in the old days of Shopify, they may work, but and now in a couple of years where it's very mature now, drop shipping, everyone has gone through all the products. So it's really not the way to do it, in my opinion. But going back to your question, the one thing that we have noticed is a lot of time these founders don't know that they should be the leader of their company, right? Because of trust issues, they don't want to hire out. They still want to do everything themselves. They have grown to, I would say, mixed six-figure business. They obviously have the profit. They have the ability, they have the cash flow to hire. They don't do it because they have been burned by a VA that didn't do a good job, answering customer inquiries, right? Or they got burned by a VA that, had a weird time zone, so didn't fulfill orders on time, and customer got delayed. So then they just stop hiring altogether and just decided to do it all themselves, right? And then we look at a business, we're like, hey, your business is thriving. Like all your metrics are pointing in the right direction. You can easily double this business if you just let go a little bit, but they're so in the weeds, right? Like you said, Joseph, like they're so being what was the example? Seamstress, right? They're
The
being
seamstress. Yeah.
they're being the guy. They're still the person selling the clothes instead of the person selling the clothes to Macy's, right? So they need to kind of like step back and really look at the business and really like we kind of tell them like what is your goal, like what is your financial goal, what is your end goal, what is your family goal, like
Mm-hmm.
is it to labor over this business for 16 hours all the time, like is that the life you want to live, we really want to get them to understand that it's very important to expand and hire out and find help. And that's kind of what we're here for too, right? We're like telling them, hey, you already have so much on your plate. Are you sure you want to add, accurate bookkeeping and getting yourself tax savings on top of that too? Right. So we're like, yeah, just let us handle that part. Let us give you the advice you need and give you the reports you need. So then we only have to talk on a month. We're just talking like we have a monthly call with them. We just talk on a monthly basis. We update you. We let you know how your business is doing. We'll give you recommendations and you can move on and be the CEO and actually grow your business from that point on.
Mm-hmm. Because you have, I'm just going to try to like off the top of my head, pull up like all of the different exterior services and products. I mean, for one, we're in drop shipping country, so the essence of the business is outsourced. The CPAs, obviously, such as yourself, different organization, different service. You have your third party logistics. You have you might have somebody else do your marketing, whether that's
Ad agency. Yep.
yeah, ad agency. You might have somebody else doing your retention marketing. We talk to people like that. So it is important to be into that mindset of not only a leader, but I think also an ambassador too, on behalf of my brand, to
Agree.
also have these relationships with all of these other these empires and these kingdoms. So this is, and it reflects more of what our healthy economic system is like, which is we are relying on people really in all parts of the world to make this business functional.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the coffin there, Joseph. It's like, don't let the expert handle their area, right? If you're doing your own email marketing and you're only getting a 2x ROAS, but a firm can promise you 5x, why would you not do that, right? If it's a guaranteed return for you, right? And then you get to not have that burden of doing email marketing and then really focus on your core business, which is growing your product line, right? Negotiating better rates with your suppliers, possibly, doing better customer service. So there's always more areas you can improve on and more things that you don't have to spend all your time doing if there's a better solution out there.
Mm-hmm. And so here's one that I want to ask you about the exit. It's funny because I only the concept of exiting an e-commerce business was actually relatively new. One of my more recent guests, guy's not even 25 yet, and he's already sold up one of his businesses.
Incredible.
And credit to him. So, have you run into complications where somebody wants to sell their business, and in that there are all of these external factors that go into making this business functional? I mean, it's one thing if the business had everything internal, right? They have internal marketing, you have internal CPA, you have internal the customer service, fulfillment. And so it's a more of a contained ecosystem. And I can see that being a little bit easier to sell to an investor or an interested company that wants to buy this out. Does the difficulty increase or possibly even decrease if somebody has more of a externalized and really an outsourced operation?
Yes. You know your stuff, Joseph. So for sure, I would say,
Thank you.
we haven't.
It's been a long road, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, we haven't seen, I would say, too many times where a pure, I would say pure dropping shipping business gets much interest from outside investors, purely for the factors that you mentioned, right? Because every single part of your business is outsourced, right? Usually investors want to see something, I would say, proprietary, right? They don't want to see that me, Alan, selling my my neck massager, but actually just 10 other people selling the same thing. Just I came up with a better, clever name, which still didn't work. But that doesn't help them, right? They're like, well, you have immediate competition. Immediately we buy your company. There's 10 other guys that can sell the exact same thing. What's the point? Why should I buy up your company, right? So they want to see something proprietary. They want to see something that you invented or that you added on that's enhancement. And further than that is something that you're able to prove that you can produce, right? Sometimes a lot of things become, I would say, prototypes or just something that's in progress, but you haven't executed on it. And execution is one of the big things they want to look for. They're like, okay, you have this great deck set out. You say in the next 2 years, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to bring to the US. Can you do it first? Then call us. We'll give you our number, right? So I would say it's actually pretty hard if you're just doing drop shipping to possibly find an acquirer, right? It's only when you transform your business into more of a branded business, I would say. At least, yeah, branded. White label is kind of hard too, but more branded, more just no one can take this from you, I would say, right? Something that you can even, I would say, put a copyright or a trademark on it. That's when investors get really interested because they're like, okay, you have this enhancement. No one else in the marketplace does. You're the leader in this field. Yeah, we would love to work with you and partner with you and possibly, find you an exit, right? So I would say those are the type of company we have seen as most success when they take things into their own hand, especially the product side.
And this might be a short question, but has somebody, say a drop shipper, this is an important question for my audience, but have they found a route, say they start just drop shipping, they move to white label, and then maybe they do their own internal fulfillment? Has anybody gone down that route? Has anybody, you don't have to go specific with it, but have you seen anything along those lines?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Okay. I think I'm not an ecom guru by any means, but just from what I've seen from my experience last year, that is I would say the recommended route these days, right? Dropshipping is a great space to get started. It's a great way to get your foot wet, great way to get testing done and see if this is a right business for you, right? See if this is something that you want to do. But then I would say if you're really serious about it, the next evolution is to take that product, figure out how to make it better, right? How to make a better mousetrap. I think it's the common saying, right? And how to put your spin on it, right? Put your label on it and make it your own, right? And I think that comes with coming up with custom ads for it, like hiring models to do it, and then you really just want them not to know you for that product, but for the brand, right?
Right.
You want them to know you for the brand of Netflix instead of the product that you have, right? And then they follow the brand, right? They follow like the anchor, right, for the Apple of the world, right? They don't just follow iPhone or AirPod, right? So I would say that's the most important thing. And yeah, I think it's a very common trend right now of owning your product and then owning the manufacturing process and then fulfilling it in the US.
Okay, well, it's good to hear, and that's certainly a point that I wanted to reinforce as well, just so that our audience understands like where I stand on it and my own progress. Is that so? The store that I was that I have up at first, I called it close drawer because I wanted it to be about whatever drawer is closest to us tends to have our most valuable items. Like the one right by me, it's got keys, it's got my wallet, it's got my lip balm, the things I can't live without. And then I started thinking of it in a more fundamental level, and I realized, what is this really about? It's about giving people more agency over where they live. It's about how can I use the surface underneath my desk? How can I defy gravity? Put a drawer underneath there. Now I have wall hooks all over my wall. So I ended up rebranding it and calling it Second Space. And it is about encouraging people to think about all this space that we don't immediately go to as something that we can use to improve our living situation. And we don't know where this is going to go. But if I were to sit in a room and try to interest somebody on it, I wouldn't focus on the drawer that I can stick underneath the desk. I would focus on the ideology and the products that represent that. The products are the extension of the brand rather than the brand is an extension of the product.
You hit it right on target.
Well, I appreciate that. Hopefully the investor in 4 or 5 years from now will say the same thing.
Okay, and
course,
you can feel free to pull me in that meeting too.
Yeah.
If you need me to.
Yeah, I'll keep on the Rolodex. Yeah. It's a brief aside, but it's just been like one of the most crazy experiences that I've had. How many people have added on to my Rolodex just in the last year? Just
wow.
all these emails, all these contacts, and to be able to meet them in a space where I can provide value because I'm not bad at what I do. Anyways, okay, pat on the back over. So for our audience, we want to condition, and by the way, this is something I got to deal with too. So I'm right there with them. Is that we want to condition people 2 things. Number 1 is to get out of the fear mindset and into the excitement mindset of I'm not afraid to file my taxes. I'm excited to do it because I want to be completely upfront and above board about what I do and reap the benefits. So there's that. And then there is the actual work that I need to do to start conditioning myself to be mindful of the expenditures, maybe how I should set up my bank account. So if you want to choose, this is a choose your own novel for a second here. Do you want to go with the mindset first? Actually, let's do that. Let's do that because mindset is always a better place to start. So how do we excite people to have this relationship with their taxes?
That's a great way to put it, excitement. Okay, so I laugh because excitement and tax usually don't go together, right? Like I'm gonna give a little tidbit about myself. Even in college, when I was just going to do my accounting program, I fell asleep in my tax class. Just honestly, right? In my corporate tax class, it was just so much numbers thrown at me, so many tax rates. I was like, oh no, this is not working. And sadly, I was dumb. I was sitting in the second row. So the teacher spotted me. He was like, Alan, what are you doing? I was like, okay, got it. But to fast forward, I realized how, after working and after working with all these multinational companies, how impactful tax is, right? And how detrimental it is when you don't do it correctly. Okay. And not to, I would say, fuel further fear into people, but we here at Free Cash Flow, we really just want to educate people that tax is not a scary thing. Okay, let me give you a little story if that's okay, Joseph.
100%.
Okay, so we have a client, right? That's it's a former client because he just moved on and exit business now. He was so sad one day, right? Because he came to me and said, Alan, I made a big boo-boo. I was like, what kind of boo-boo? It was like, I I hit the 7-figure mark. I was like, wait, what? I mean, you mean congratulations? It's like, isn't that great? It's like you move from 6-figure to 7-figure, right? It's like, yeah. It's like, but that's terrible. It's like, wait, why is that terrible? It's like, I was like, I'm screwed. It's like, what do you mean? So then we went like back and forth like that over text, and then finally he told me, basically he was brought to believe that there's this thing called a millionaire tax. Okay, and what it does is as soon as you hit 7 figures in revenue, they tax you super heavily because you're a millionaire now. Because all of a sudden you hit that nice 1 million mark, you Shopify screenshot it and put it on a form, and they're like, look at that, I did it, right? They're like, yeah, like I'm screwed. Like the IRS gonna send agents at my door. They're gonna like really watch how I use my money, and gonna come after me. It's like if I do anything like in the gray area, they're gonna come after me. I was like, okay, that's first of all, that's not a thing. That's that's not true. And I think like this is just an example, but I think there's a lot of like misconception and myth out there like that about taxes and about accounting, where people believe that that is the truth, that there's such thing as millionaire tax, where they just get immediately hit with them and agents start following them around with something. So I'm like, no, that's not a thing. And I think people are afraid to even make more money because they think they'll just get this like super heavy tax, with like people are gonna start watching them really closely and like a hawk, like FBI is gonna come after them or something. But yeah, that's the part where we're like, there's a lot of education needed in this space, right? And part of the reason why we made the course for tax for ecom is to kind of like for these people starting out and they found some success, maybe they're making 5 to 10K a month. Like, don't be afraid of going further. Don't be like, ooh, if I make past this tomorrow, what happens? Who's gonna come after me, right? Because like I guess it's scary because I this happened to me too. Like Shopify started asking me to identify myself, right? It's like, hey, you're at this revenue mark now. Can you submit your identification, right, with some kind of proof that you are who you said you are,
Yeah.
and things like that. And I think that scares people. Like, oh shoot, they're just gonna stop my sales if I don't tell them who I am, and things like that. I think adds to the fear of I don't know what I should be doing at this point. Like, are they saying like I made too much money? Like, what's gonna happen to me? Are they gonna come after my house? Are they gonna take my car away? And I think like that's all like these things that keeps people, along with other issues, I'm sure, in ecom, right? Like ad spin and your ad count closing on you, that keeps people from wanting to be the best form of themselves, right? Like they can do it. I'm ordinary. I'm an ordinary person. A lot of people are ordinary people, and these ordinary people are making incredible success stories in the space. And I think like I tell them like this guy's no different than you. You can do it too. It just don't be afraid of these little roadblocks and things that get in your way. I'll say it really goes down. I was like mental, like you said, Joseph. Like they have to get the mentality that there is no roadblock. You can drive through all of them. You have a Ferrari. Just ram through all of them.
If I can tell you a quick story too, this is just for the fun of it. But
yeah, definitely.
At one time, I received this Visa bill, and the bill was like 5 cents, maybe 10 cents,
Oh,
and I was like,
okay.
"What did I transact on my credit card that was 10 cents? And why would somebody have let me have this transaction?" And I actually got kind of excited because it made me think, well, what would happen if I didn't pay this 10 cents? Like, are they going to come after me? And if so, are they going to have a means that would cost them less than 10 cents? Like, is the phone going to ring and be like, get him out of here? So
over 10 cents. You see,
yeah.
even 10 cents keep you up at night, and you can imagine what these guys are facing when they have to see a tax
Yeah,
bill.
because it's principle. It's like, well, we want what we were owed, so we're gonna have this on principle. So a guy comes knocking on my door. He says, "Look, I just had to take the bus to get here, so you have to pay up." So.
Yeah, I wish people would have this mindset that you have, Joseph, is that they should rightfully get what they're owed, right? And that's one thing that they don't realize with taxes is that not Uncle Sam or no one from the government is gonna be like, oh, you overpaid us. Oops, let me give you back to you. Like, like no one's gonna tell you that you forgot to take a certain deduction or credit, right? They're not gonna remind you, and that's just money you're kind of giving away, and that's profit you earn from working hard in your business.
All right, and then on to tactics. So in my position right now, I am okay. Like very, very specifically, I'm just waiting on a little bit more of my product to arrive because I want to do some ads for myself, and then some of those ads be on Facebook, and then it begins. And for people who might even be further back, but they might not even have settled on their product yet, they're still fiddling around. What can they start doing right away to be conditioned and be prepared to approach tax season with as much gusto as possible prior to eventually being able to reach out to someone such as yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
So I would say if you're just starting out, there's oh man, this it's a pretty big area, but I'll say just a couple of things, right? Just a couple of tips in general. One is there's a what really often missed deduction that I would say newcomers in the space don't know about is the startup cost deduction. It basically allows you to take $5,000 of tax deduction off your first year of business that you're operating for things that you did before you start your business. So, for example, Joseph, if you have done research, right, in your business and like, hey, I want to see if I should sell this product, let me research it. That whatever the cost of that is deductible. Or you say, hey, I need to go visit my a supplier or manufacturer in Ohio or in China and go talk to them about, is it possible? Is it possible for me to make this product? That part is part of that $5,000 deduction too. So, and then any organizational costs, right? If you had fees for starting an LLC or fees for incorporating, getting a business license, that's all deductible part of $5,000. So I would say if you're just starting out, make sure you don't like discourage yourself with big tax bills. So take all tax deduction you can, especially this $5,000 tax startup deduction. And number two, I already mentioned it. Like I would say, if you're any, I would say even 7 out of 10 confident that this is not just going to be a 1 year thing for you, that you're gonna be in the ecom dropshipping business for longer term than 1 year, start an LLC immediately. I would say an LLC, if people don't know, is a limited liability company.
Mhm.
It basically provides some, I would say, level of protection for you as far as your personal liability, right? So if you don't have an LLC, what happens is, if you happen to have a very dangerous product like a toy with batteries that leaks or anything like that, the consumer can come directly after you,
Yeah.
right? As a person, personally. So you kind of want this LLC to be a way to stopgap that, where they can only go after the business assets, right? So they can only bankrupt your business, take your debts away, but they can't go after your car or your house or something like that. So I would say those two are really big for people just starting out. And number three is, just start keeping track of everything. Like I think a lot of time when you start your business, you get very excited. You're like, I'm gonna do ad tests for this. I'm gonna spend another $10 test with this, and then things start racking up, right? And in the world of credit cards right now, it's just very easy to spend, right? You enter your credit card on Facebook, you just start spending, and they send you a bill when you reach your threshold. Or you enter your credit card in Shopify, it's like, oh, there's so many of these shiny new apps in here. I want to try this marketing one. And even for me, I tried like 5 email marketing one because they all seem like they all different great features for me, and then you get a bill for them, you're like, my Shopify bill is $300 a month. What happened here? So I really encourage people to really keep track of that, right? Because everything's money for you. Everything's money going out for you. So don't lose track of things. Don't only look at the winning asset that has your 3.0 ROAS. Add up all the ones that didn't work out that you're just testing with, because those are money going out. And you really want to know, I would say, your true cost of operating your business, and not just kind of like have blinders on and just look at what you want to what cause you want to look at, because it's not a true representation of really how well you're doing. And you really want to be, I would say, truthful and transparent to yourself first, so that you're not like thinking you're doing great, but actually you're not cash flowing well and you're actually losing money at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And you raise a great point about sole propriety. We've had other people on the project before, Mark and Andrew Pierce. They do an LLC formation company. Okay, that is not the official term. That was just the closest I can get to off the top of my head. But for the audience, I definitely recommend referring to that episode to learn a little bit more specifically about not only the efficacy of an LLC, but also how cost effective it can actually be. So there's two things here. One of them is about so I set up a sole propriety in my early 20s. And I remember I was listening to some of your YouTube content before we started, and the point that you had made is that sole proprietor is fine to start if you just want to learn how to run a business, and it's a great entry point. But at the moment you start making money, it becomes a liability, because now I'm held liable for anything that goes wrong. And so there's two things that I want to talk about. One of them is why in God's name are the feds so protective of LLC versus so vicious towards sole propriety? If I'm at the end of the day, I'm just one person. I just want to run my business. To me, it just seems like an easy flip of the switch for the business to be held accountable rather than me being held accountable. it just to me, it just baffles my mind that the most it would be like, just like if I wanted to learn to play guitar and the learning instrument costs $5,000, then the professional one is like 100 to 200 bucks. And it's like, so it's actually really, really risky at the beginning. And then if I get over, there's like a million metaphors. Another one is like when all the baby turtles are on the beach and they're like trying to make it into the water. It's like the most dangerous part of the turtle's life is like the first 10 seconds before they get into the water, and then they're fine. So I don't know. It's always just boggled my mind just how not a good idea it is to run a sole propriety. And I don't really have a question, but if you have anything you want to say on that subject, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, that's a great little tidbit. But I think the whole point of LLC is even beyond just the protection part, which I also have a great metaphor for. It's like if you're going into battle without a shield, right? You wouldn't do that, and the LLC is kind of like that shield that you go in battle with.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with LLC is it just brings, I would say, a level of legitimacy for your business, right? So what LLC gives you is you can also get a EIN number with it, which is an employer identification number. And what you can do with that is, you can go set up bank accounts, right? Or go apply for business credit card, which I also highly recommend people do actually, because they have great point systems for businesses, especially small businesses. But the thing with LLC is it also gives you put you in a mindset that you're serious about this, right? Because if you think about it as a sole proprietorship, there's no paperwork to file. You're just kind of like, I'm gonna dip my toe in here, and if it doesn't work out, I'm
Yeah.
going back to my day job, right? And then you're not committed, right? You maybe
Right.
do it for a month. You're like, two sales, that was fun. Let me go back to what it's like. And then when LLC, I know there is a cost involved, but thankfully these days it's a lot less cost, right? It's only a couple $100s, and there's a lot of great providers out there. And the thing is, with LLC, you kind of like, oh, I'm officially a business. I have paperwork. I have a statement of incorporation with it. There's someone knows that I exist, right? Someone knows that Netflix exists out there in the world, and it's kind of like it gives you the mindset that, oh, I'm running a business. I'm a true entrepreneur. I would say even, right. I can
Mhm.
put comma LLC behind my name when I fill in a form, right? And I think that's part of something that's, I would say, indescribable, that you can't put a number on it or money on it, where you're like, it gives you that sense of and not even urgency, but sense of like legitimacy that you're running a real business. I should try to make this work because I paid a fee for it, right? You invested into it, so I should try to make this into successful. And I think we have seen that people who have gone through the LLC route are a lot more successful than just those who are, after 6 months in, are still sole proprietorship and unsure, right? I think it flips that switch in their mind that they should be serious about business and invest more time into it.
Mhm. Well, that's a great take on it, and I think focusing on the mindset is what I think is far more compelling than the mindset that I have, which is don't get bankrupted by the Fed. So that's definitely a much better way of looking at it. Now, the other thing too that there's another side to this too, which is there's C corp and there's S corp, and I want to touch on this briefly because I think this might be important for us to understand. But I think holistically, LLC pretty much covers what an e-commerce store such as the ones myself and my audience might make. But I'm wondering if it can go all the way through to the exit. So where would a C corp or an S corp be relevant in this context?
Oh yeah, that's a great point to bring up. So I would say for most of the audience out there, especially those drop shipping, right? An LLC is more than enough, right? The reason I say that because it's actually I would say the easiest structure to formulate to start up. There's very little paperwork. You can probably do it in like a sitting, right? If you go on the site, and then they'll kind of take care of the rest, and then you'll get your official paper in 4 to 6 week time, I would say, and typically. But a C corp, right, and as on the extreme end of the scale, where there's tons of paperwork to deal with. You have to, you have to have board minutes, board meetings. You have to have a president, vice president, secretary. Basically, there's a lot of things you got to do to become a C corp. Now, why are the two primary reasons people become C corp? It's really two reasons. One, to attract outside money, right? Or two, to basically become internationally recognized, I would say, right? So having C corp and having that ink behind your name, it basically let people know that, hey, I arrived, right? At a certain point, the IRS forces you to switch, like unless you volunteer to do that. But at a certain revenue level, they're like, yep, you have to become a C corp now. Like no, there's no way around it. And it's fine if they do that. That just means you've made a lot of money. That's great. Good news. Congrats. But I would say that if you haven't hit that threshold, I would stay with LLC for all you guys listeners out there, because it's just easier to set up. There's a lot less paperwork to go through, there's a lot less headache for you to go through, and it's more than enough protection. But a C corp is a whole other beast. C corp separates you from the entity entirely, right? An LLC still ties to you as an individual person, but C corp stands on its own, right? So this is very morbid to say, but say Joseph passed away, the C corp goes on. Your business, your desk business, it can thrive. It can become like a legacy
you're welcome to
business.
be more morbid too, by the way, if you want to. So Joseph fell down the stairs, and well, let's just
okay,
say,
yeah, I didn't want to say that. I was going to say run over by a car, but basically
my favorite is hit by a truck. There's something like very cathartic.
That sounds like it hurts the most.
It's so big. It's just like the fastest way, anyways.
Okay, I'll say car, you just become in a okay, never mind, in a vegetable state. But anyway, so the point is with C corp, the business lives on, right? Your legacy lives on. Your your future children can take over it if they want. You can also pass it down to just a board member. But the whole thing is, that's why it's so complicated, because it stands on its own, right? S corp is kind of like the hybrid. I want to talk about hybrid between LLC and a C corp.
Sure.
An S corp basically says, hey, we're gonna give you some of the easiness of the LLC, but you kind of become more legitimate. You kind of are a real corporation, right? And what it brings is a lot of restrictions on S corp, but the main benefit, I would say, why someone want to switch from an LLC and S corp is a thing called self-employment tax, right? So as an LLC, you're responsible for paying both portion, the employer and employee portion of the self-employment tax, which is around 13-something%. But if you're just an employee, you only paid half of that, which is around 7.65%. So anyone out there working like 9 to 5, that's your part you're responsible for, right? So, but as an S corp, what it says is, well, you actually are only, you can actually declare that you are a employee of your own company. Like you and owner can be an employee of your own company. So we allow you to only pay the employee portion in that case. So it actually is a pretty big savings if you're at a certain threshold where you can save like the 7-point-something% times the net profit that you're bringing in. So we run a lot of calculations to see if that's worth it for an owner to go through the corporate restructuring to become an S corp. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, and then we leave it up to them for their best judgment if they want to do it, and we let them know all the cons if they do switch, the additional paperwork they have to do. And then a lot of times they just say, yeah, it may not worth it, I'm going to LLC. Or they say, yeah, let's go for it. So if we leave it up to the client if they want to go down that route.
Yeah, and what I find encouraging about this too is that it gives people an idea of how far that they really can go if that's what they're motivated to do. If they want their business to truly become like a worldwide brand, and to go toe to toe with some of the legacy brands that we've known and sometimes love, sometimes not so much love. I just reluctantly support it out of habit. There are routes, and it can start with something as simple as our smaller e-commerce businesses, our one person dropshipping operations. They can get to that point. And so what I find encouraging is there is a path for it. It's not an easy path, but there are people on our side, such as yourself, who want to make sure that we have all our advantages just as much as Amazon has all their advantages. Okay, well, it's not one-to-one, like you said, but
yeah, not one-to-one. Yeah, but we try to get you as much as possible. We'll try to maximize what you're able to. And I just want to mention, I realized in my head I did really bad math. Half of 13 is not 7 because the full rate is 15.3% for the self-employment rate. But I think people expect accountants always do perfect math, so I just want to clarify that.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm even worse at math than that, so I just inherently. That's kind of the funny thing is like we do inherently trust the accountant to have the math.
I know. You even down my math, so I was like, all right, I'm just gonna correct myself.
Yeah. I don't even know 7 can be a half. What is
right?
Decibels? Really? What is this witchcraft? Yeah. All right, so we actually hit an hour, but we're going to go a little bit over, just because this is one other thing that I wanted to ask you about, and then I wanted to give you also a moment too, just in case there was any other key pillar to this that you want our audience to know, because I'm inundated with questions here, and I can't quite curate what I think is the most important one, so I'll give you a chance to do that. But I also wanted to ask you about the sales tax nexus. What is sales tax nexus? How does it work? And Is this, I'm sorry, this might sound a little silly. Is this like a specific tool that you offer, or is this a more broad reaching subject?
Oh yeah, no problem. So sales tax nexus is basically a term, right? It's
Sure.
the word nexus is I say the actual definition is it's an affiliation or a connection to a place. I think that's what how they want to define
Affiliate
it.
connection to a
And
place. Okay.
yes, it basically is a way for the IRS to determine, do you have an affiliation or connection to an area, right? So let's take for example, your business is established in New York, right? But you have a manufacturing plant in Florida. You have an branch office in Ohio with a couple employees there. You have a third party wholesaler relationship with someone in California, right? So all those things I mentioned, excuse me, are
Sure.
nexus points, right? Which means that to the IRS, you are somehow responsible for all those points that your business are transacting with. So for the IRS purpose and sales tax purpose, all those states might have a sales tax impact on your business. So what we evaluate for the businesses, we ask them these questions, right? We ask them, hey, where is your fulfillment center? Where's your manufacturing? Where are you having employees in other states, right? And so that's one part. So there's now it's a very long explanation, but it's basically split into two kind of nexus now that we look at, right? This physical nexus, which I was right to mention, having a physical plant there, having physical employees there, but it's also economic nexus, which is what's troubling online sellers these days, right?
Mhm.
Like due to a court case, I think South Dakota was Wayfair. They make it so that online businesses have what they call economic nexus, which means as long as you have a concentration of customers that you're selling to in a certain state, they also want you to collect, and you also have nexus in that state, right? So say you're doing really well on your desk because tons of people have desks in Georgia, and you sold over 100,000 desks in Georgia. Well, that triggers the threshold for that state, and since you have economic nexus in that state, you have to remit sales tax to that state now. So that's kind of an example of how economic nexus will come bite you. And I don't know if all ecom owners realize this, that even if they don't have a physical presence in that state, like they're not physically located there, due to economic nexus, they will still be responsible. Georgia will eventually, government's a little bit slow, but they'll eventually
Mhm.
catch up and come after you for it, right? Because there's what they call a statute of limitation. That's basically a rule about how long a government entity has to come after you after for tax fraud or tax related issues, right? And it's usually around like 5 to 7 years. So even if you think you're okay, like today, like
Mhm.
Georgia didn't come after me, I'm so smart, I got away from it. 3 years later, they might send you a letter say, "Hey, we're investigating into your sales because we see you have a large amount of shipments and customers in our state. Like, what's going on?" And you kind of don't want to run into that issue with Nexus, right? And that's why we want to evaluate for you firsthand before you run into those issues of, hey, owner, these are the 15 states you actually have economic nexus because you're a successful 8-figure business. Let's get ahead of it. Let's see what the threshold is, and let's strategize of when you actually cross that threshold. And maybe because of specific rule, because each state comes up with their own rule for how they want to determine. Like some state says, okay, immediately after you cross it, you have to pay. Some states are like, oh, we're a really nice state. You can wait till next year, the first day of the next year, then you pay us, right? So it really depends. Sorry, I said that, but I'm sort of like Canada. If Canada was a state, it'd be one of those that's super nice and says, yeah, you can wait till next year to pay us. So we're like, yeah. So we really want to teach them that too, right? We're like, okay, so for these states, you're okay because they're very loose with their regulations about how threshold is surpassed. You can wait on these, and for other things, we're like, oh, you're around, I would say, I don't know, 90,000 in sales to a state and their threshold is 100K. Well, how much more sales do you think you're getting the last 15 days of the year? Is it worth it to you to still sell to the state or move your ad spend dollars elsewhere and
Right.
avoid that sales tax for that state, right? Avoid having paid that state. And that's is a huge amount of savings sometimes, right? So it could save you like tens of thousands of dollars if you do something like that. So we try to educate them on that, and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that. They would have just blindly kept selling, right? And then maybe it's not worth it to them. Maybe it's better for them to allocate their dollars and concentrate on other states where they haven't crossed the threshold, and they could do equally as well as far as their ending revenue for the year.
Interesting, and I guess thresholds. I suppose, like you said, it's a state by state basis, but I think generally it's probably in the in the 6-figure, 7-figure range. So
Yes.
while I don't think it's like an immediate concern, it is, as you say, once it's large enough to have a clear influence on the economic health of that state, then I can understand why they would want to come in at that point.
Yes. I think at the beginning you just kind of want to have a general idea of where your concentration is as far as your sales, but you don't have to worry about it. Like you said,
Mhm.
usually the only state you have to start off by paying sales tax is the state you're located in. Which is another great point that we bring up to our clients, especially those who are single and don't have family obligation tying them down to a certain state. We tell them, hey, you're running an online business. No one really, mind what state you're located in. No one's gonna be like, oh, because you're in the state of California, I'm gonna buy from this guy. Well, okay, sometimes they do, but most of the time for the product you're selling, it doesn't matter, right? So
Yeah.
we would actually highly encourage them to move to a more friendly sales tax and state income tax state, right? I think Nevada is a great one. Oregon is another great one, right? Where if they can, they should relocate their business so then that their physical nexus doesn't get triggered, right? So for me, I have a family. I'm in California. I'm forced to pay the high sales tax, high state income tax here, like I did for my business last year. I'm like like crying a tear because how high the rate is. But I can't relocate a whole family. But for those who are able to, I highly encourage them to look for those little advantages that they can gain by finding lower tax rate state or even no state income tax states, right? To locate their business and even when they have a fulfillment center, look for advantage like Texas, with no state income tax, right? To put it there, and then that's a great saving right there, right off the bat, for being in a better state that has better tax rates for their business.
Andrew and Mark Pierce, it was Cloud Peak Law. I remember now. They were also referencing Wyoming as their state.
Yes.
It was very friendly towards LLCs, to the point where even myself in Canada, I can set up an LLC there. And there's a desk, a physical desk associated with my business, just so there's some physicality to it. It's interesting. I didn't think a Canadian would have that means. And also, I guess too, just like a small preference, but I feel like I would, if I owed them something, I would prefer to have to pay up front. I just that way I'm more like, okay, if I do something like that, at least I know it's going to happen right away, and I have to deal with it right away. Here in Canada, things are a little too passive aggressive.
Yeah. I want to bring up a quick caveat of that. Okay, Joseph. Just letting you know, this actually I don't know if it is an advantage or not, but somewhat advantage for, I would say, international e-com sellers if they're trying to get an LLC in the States. And that, like you said, like for example, for you in Canada, right, you can pick any state to incorporate, right? Like Wyoming, Delaware, or Nevada, or 3 great states we can incorporate. But for us in the States, we kind of have to incorporate in the state of, right? So like, I think like a lot of time people search for this and they get confused. Like, okay, I'm in California. Can I just do Delaware because they have lower fees and stuff? But actually, if you're physically located in the state of California, they will make you also file in that state also. So that's a distinct advantage actually if you're a foreign seller, because you can get to pick the lowest fees states to incorporate. So it's great, and that's something we're gonna update our course on too, because we get a lot of DMs from international sellers that ask us, hey, how do I get a Stripe account, right? Or how do I open up an LLC? How do I get a bank account and questions like that? So that's something we're gonna add a little bit of education for the foreign sellers out there also in our course, because they get very confused. But I'm like, yeah, you guys actually have a great advantage because US actually allows you, because you're not physically located in any of the 50 states, you can pick a state that you want to incorporate and save on the filing fees and such like that, right? So like this is probably too much information, but like California, man, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Just for
I know full well. Yeah.
Yeah. Just for having LLC, and I say I make zero revenue this year, like zero, right? I still have to pay the minimum $800 and what they call the franchise tax for having the LLC in place. I make zero revenue, right? So it's not very friendly as far as like, I would say, small business. But if you're physically located in California, you almost have no choice to do that. But if you're in a foreign owner, or you just happen to live in those states, you just save $800 for doing nothing, right? If you're in Wyoming, if you're in Delaware, in Texas, Nevada, I'm sorry. So yeah, so it's a great advantage for foreign e-com owners in that regards.
That's terrific. I didn't know that. That's really interesting. All right. So Alan, like I said, I wanted to just give you the floor in case there's any other central pillar to this that you want to let our audience know about. You have to forgive me for not being able to figure it out for myself, but I just wanted to open it up. Is there anything else that you really want to let our audience know before we start wrapping up?
Yeah, Joseph, I would love if I can get like a couple minutes time to share just a couple tax tips. I feel like I want to really give value to your audience and just share a couple of things that they should watch out for, right, in their business starting out. Cool. Okay. So one thing is one of my favorites from if you see our YouTube channel, we talk about it too, is the travel hack tip, right? So if these guys, e-com owners, are already working really hard, they should be able to take some vacation, but they're always afraid that that pay out of pocket. But one great tip is you should try to plan your vacation in the middle of a business travel, right? So say you're traveling to go to a conference or an expo, right? And day 1, day 2, day 6, day 7 is for business purposes. Day 3, 4, and 5, can be for personal vacation. If it's a Miami Beach, you can go on the beach and enjoy yourself. And what happens is the IRS just only looks at the beginning and end of your trip, right? If the beginning of your trip and the ending of your trip is for business purpose, like you fly in, fly out, and you're talking to clients, you're at the expo, doing a meeting, they will let you take, the full trip as a travel deduction, right? So you get full, flight, airfare. If you have a rental car, if you have a hotel, lodging, that's all fair game as far as getting deductions for. That's the first thing we want business owners to emphasize on. Number two is don't skimp on thinking about the future. Retirement planning is a big thing, and retirement planning is actually something the IRS really want to help small business with. So I don't know if you noticed, Joseph, but we have a 401k plan, right, in the US where you can put money into retirement. But as a normal employee, I think the limit now is at 19,500, I want to say, of a year of you can contribute to it and get the tax deduction for it. But as a what they call a solo owner of a company, or if you have a spouse or your partner working for you, what you can do is you have a solo 401k plan at disposal. And solo 401k plan says you get not only the employee portion, which is 19,500, you also get the employer portion you can contribute, which adds another about 30,000 on. So in total, it's about $56,000 that you can contribute to a retirement plan, of course, for your use. And that's a $56,000 tax deduction you can take on your taxes this year, which is no small fry. So that's two things. And the third thing we'll emphasize is we have people who come to us who start out as drop shipping and are afraid to legitimize their business. Why? Added costs, right? They think, oh, we got to add so much more costs. There's no way I can afford this, right? But actually, with whole pandemic going on, the U.S. government really want to encourage people to start businesses. So there's actually tons of credits where they give away for employee retention. They give away what they call bonus depreciation, Section 179, which is they reward you for buying equipment and machinery for your business. And they'll give you right now 100% deduction of it, right? So if you think about it, if you buy like a $1 million, I don't know, plant or machinery for your business, you get the full $1 million as a tax deduction at your marginal tax rate. So it's great. That's all we want to encourage them. Like, don't be afraid of going further. Don't stop yourself. There's no millionaire tax, at least not yet, unless Biden introduce it. Right now, that's going to hit you on that. So don't be afraid of. Sometimes we get e-commerce just want to stop at like $800,000 a year revenue for some reason, because they're thinking the seven figures, like they bring on a whole warmer problems, right? We're like, no, keep going. We're there to back you up. We got you. Like, keep going. We're telling you can do it. You can expand your business. So yeah, there's a lot more to share, but I know we're running out of time, Joseph. So just want to encourage them to, take advantage and really equip themselves with the knowledge as far as tax and bookkeeping, and really just get a jump start on it, right? And the last thing I want to add is don't give away what you rightfully earn, right? Don't give away what you rightfully earn. If you earn that profit through your hard sweat and labor, right? Because you stay up 3 a.m. every night making this business work, don't at the end of the year then give it away to the government. It's just kind of like backward thinking, I would say. Just make sure you can keep that money in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's terrific. Definitely a lot of actionable takeaways right at the end there. And it's funny because usually like the rapid question is if you have any last bits of advice or parting wisdom or stuff like that. But you kind of did that more, anyways. It all came together beautifully. So I'll leave it at that. But aside from that, just let our audience know how they can check out your content and have a look at your web presence and take those crucial next steps.
Yeah, definitely. If there are interested e-com owners out there who are at a point where they do need accounting and bookkeeping help, we would love to go on a free consultation call with us. We really only take on clients that we think will be a good fit that we can help out on, right? So if nothing else, we're on the call, we're just gonna give you some free advice, like this podcast, so you can continue running your business and doing well in it and being more prepared. But if you are interested, our website is freecashflow.io /book. You can get right to the booking page. And then, if you're just interested in, if you're just starting out and just want some, free advice, we also have a YouTube channel, which is Free Cash Flow Agency, that you can check out. And we're trying to put more and more content on there. I'm setting a goal for 2 videos a week, Joseph, but hopefully you can keep me to it. But sometimes people get lazy and don't keep a schedule.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And then furthermore, I mentioned in the beginning that we have our course that we spent 3 months recording on. We try to jam pack it with useful business advice and business tips for people out there to really get the jump start they needed to think about accounting and tax and not be afraid of it starting out, and just have that great foundation, right? So, we really mainly only work with six-figure guys, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to know that even before they hit that mark, right? So it's called tax-free ecom, hyperdrive your after-tax profit. And for the Debutify and listeners and listener to the podcast, we would love to give a promo code, if that's okay, Joseph, out there. So 20% off.
Don't be surprised if I used it.
Okay. 20% off code I'll provide to you after the call, of course. But yeah, for the course, we really don't price it too high. We really just want to spread this knowledge. Like, we really want people to know what's going on in the world of accounting, bookkeeping, and just be a part of the business that they don't have to be afraid of anymore, and that they're not going to be afraid to either outsource, or just that if they do outsource, they know the right questions to ask, right? Because a lot of times they just hand it off and don't know what's going on when they get something bad. They're like, oh, cool, you did it. They don't know the right terms to say. They don't know the right deductions to ask for. And of course, introduce all that to you. We sometimes it's just knowing that term, knowing that phase is just equally as important as deep diving into it, right? Then you can just be like, oh, did you look for this credit for me? And they're like, did you look for R&D credit for me? It's like something like that, right? So it just helps them get that understanding of accounting and tax at the basis level. So that's really what we want to do, and for the audience out there.
Right, and I think it's only fair too that for the clients to do their due diligence in this regard, because you are exceedingly good at what you do, but you're also exceedingly busy, and so to some degree, I think it is fair for us to make sure that we have as much understanding and as much knowledge as we have too, so that we can also ease some of the burden on you, so that you can do an even better job for us.
Oh, that's a great point. I didn't even think of that, Joseph. But yes, that would help. So, I mean, one of the package we offer is a consultation call where they can just pick out brain on anything they want in the course. So if they, we always encourage them to at least go watch like halfway through the course or 3/4 of the way, then get on the call with us, and then they can really just ask us anything they want under the sun, right? And then a lot of time when they do that, they have more knowledgeable questions to ask us, and we're able to help them more and bring more value to the business. So, and they really can take these back and apply it, and we see the results, and we're just happy that they're doing well.
Excellent. Well, happy to hear. And doors always open. So anytime you want to come back, give yourself a quarter or two and come back and let us know how things are going. Be more than happy to
appreciate it.
Pick up the conversation where we left off. And to our audience, as always, your participation and your listening and your discretion means a great deal to me. And it's great to, and I can't say it enough, but thank you for giving me the ability to collect this information, absorb it, and then provide it to all of you as well. So with that, take care, and we'll check in soon.